Welcome to Unbound, the podcast with Beth Curry, author, storyteller, and survivor. This is where books meet real life, where Beth reads chapters from her work and breaks free from the traditional audiobook format, diving deeper into the personal experiences, lessons, and liberation behind every page. Nothing is off limits. Let's get unbound.
You're Beth.
That's right.
Do I have Jennifer?
Yeah.
But I don't have Dave.
Right.
Do I just have you and Jennifer?
And your sister?
Sandy?
Yeah.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Unbound. I'm Beth Curry. Today's chapter is called My Favorite Sister, and it's about my Aunt Sandy's memories of Mom. Several people have contributed for their own chapter in this book, some memories of Mom, and when they sent me their memories, I went armed with their notes and letters and everything, and used that to kind of get Mom's stories out of them and her version and her memories of those stories. And then I wrote a chapter about it. And, sometimes it, was easy because she remembered everything, or she would even start to contribute some of her own memories. And other times, it was hard. Like, it would take several visits before I could actually get enough to actually create a chapter. So yeah, I would share these stories with Mom, and I'd watch her kind of try to piece together fragments of her relationships with the people who've contributed. And, what it taught me was that even when details fade, the emotional truth of being loved kind of stays forever, right? It lingers. So this one, again, is about my Aunt Sandy's memories of Mom, and it's called My Favorite Sister. Memory is strange in the way it persists and fades. In my journey to understand my mother as she is now, I found myself increasingly drawn to the memories others hold of her, stories that sketch the contours of a woman I recognize, but who exists now only in fragments. The first time I shared my Aunt Sandy's stories with Mom, her brow furrowed in that particular way that signals confusion. "I don't remember that," she said, shaking her head slightly. "Sandy said that? About me?" Her eyes searched for mine for confirmation, for some hint that might unlock the memory. The second time, a week later, there was a flicker, just the briefest flash of recognition when I mentioned Satil. "We lived there," she said confidently, though she couldn't recall the bathtub incident, which made her laugh at this time, or the road trip Sandy had described. By the third attempt, I'd learned to approach these memory exercises differently. Instead of presenting the story as a fait accompli that she could remember, I offered pieces like puzzle parts, watching carefully to see which ones might fit into the remaining framework of her collection. "Sandy mentioned you two used to go on adventures together, driving trips where you'd get lost on purpose," I suggested. Mom laughed then, a genuine laugh that brought with it a scrap of memory. "Oh, we did. If we ever used maps. Sandy was terrible with maps, just awful. We ended up in some little town once. What was it called?" She couldn't remember the town's name, but for a moment she remembered the feeling, the sisterly closeness, the shared adventure. It was these emotional memories that seemed to persist longer than factual ones. Over several visits, we pieced together a patchwork of her recollections, sometimes contradictory, often incomplete, but occasionally vivid in unexpected detail. "She was always tagging along," Mom said once unprompted. "Always wanted to be where I was. Little sisters." It took many conversations spread across weeks to compile her fragmented memories of her relationship with Sandy. What emerged wasn't a complete narrative, but something more impressionistic. Moments of annoyance and affection, of rivalry and reconciliation, of the complex bond between sisters that transcended any single story. Below are Sandy's own words about her sister, my mother, written with the clarity that Mom can no longer access. I share them here, and in this chapter, not as absolute truth, for memory is subjective even without dementia, but as another piece of the mosaic that makes up the woman my mother was, and in some essential ways, still is. My Favorite Sister, Kathy Myra Davidson Downey, by Sandy Davidson. My earliest memories of my sister takes place in our home in Satil, Quebec. She was babysitting me while my parents were next door playing bridge. I was probably 3 or so, and she was giving me a bath. When she told me it was time to get out of the tub, I wanted to stay and play with my duckies and cups. She reached down and pulled me out, and for revenge, I ran out of the bathroom to hide, still sopping wet, and if memory serves, I was screaming at her for forcing me to get ready for bed. I did not want bedtime. When she finally caught me, I was squirming and screaming at the same time. She hauled back and swatted my behind. Now I was still wet from the tub, and her slapping me hurt more because I hadn't been dried. She realized the slap hurt, and she used this as a weapon every time she was forced to babysit and bathe me. She's a closet masochist, and I think I'm the only one who knew this about her. I'm sorry. That makes me laugh every time. I cottoned on to her motivation in taking such pleasure bathing me, and I determined that she really didn't like me much. I knew she loved me, but that was the moment I realized I was the cause of her anger. It was not babysitting or bathing me. It was that I came along at all. She had 7 years without me and 2 parents who doted on her. Now, her parents were trying everything they had to keep me in line, and she was kind of left by the wayside while my parents tried to curb my independence. I certainly didn't help matters with our relationship over the years because I figured out which buttons to push to upset her life by finding and reading her diary and then teasing her. Anything I could find that would offend her was my goal. For years, we were at odds with each other until my 10th year when she asked if I would like to drive to Seattle with her for a holiday. It was such a fun trip, and by the time we got back to Oakville, where we lived, I was loving and liking my sister, and I believe she felt the same way. Once the parents were out of the way, we got along fine, but if the 4 of us were together, there was inevitably a bit of a war between Kath and I. Another Kathy story that stuck in my head was in 2015 when Kath's daughter Beth, along with her husband Brian, invited me out to a bar to listen to live music. Just before leaving, Kathy took me by the shoulders and gave me permission to get a little drunk and have some fun, something I hadn't done in a long time. Now, I'm as close to Beth as I am to anyone else, and her husband Brian is the nicest man I've known in a long, long time. Anyway, we were having a great time, if memory serves, and didn't I go out onto the patio and fell down on my face? Beth caught a glimpse of me falling, and when she next looked, began to giggle with an obvious attempt of holding guffaws. Anyway, I popped up and decided we had to leave because my face was bleeding and I was experiencing drunken embarrassment. I ended up on the porch at Coldstream, loved that porch, reliving the fall, and Kath came out, saw my face, and said, "That's it. No more being your mother. Next time you go out, leave me out of it." She felt it was her fault for letting me go. We ended up laughing over it all and had one of the best nights I ever had sharing with her that night. We didn't go to bed until around 4:00 a.m. It's just another notch on the memory tree that I'll never forget. Another memory I have of Kath is her and I going on road trips. I'd drive and we'd travel all over the place getting lost. We called it our adventures, and we always ran into unplanned situations, which left us laughing long and hard. I miss my sister so much. She was my sounding board after we lost our folks, and she could always make me feel better about my decisions and my plans. She was always encouraging me and building my confidence. My hope is she remain happy. She's her best self when she's happy. When I read this account again to Mom on a good day, she smiled at parts, frowned at others. "I don't remember hitting her," she said, looking troubled. Then a moment later, with unexpected clarity, "But she was a handful, always running off." The bathtub story didn't resurface in her memory, but she nodded vigorously at the mention of their road trips. "Adventures," she repeated, the word clearly meaningful. "We called them adventures because we never knew where we'd end up." The bar story made her laugh with unexpected delight. "Sandy fell down a lot, I think," she said with affection rather than mockery. "I remember that night. Not all of it, but I remember her face was bleeding." She touched her own cheek absently. "I think I was so worried. Sisters worry, you know. I told her no more drinking without me there to catch her." There was something touching about how the roles had reversed in her memory. Instead of giving Sandy permission to go out, she now remembered herself as the protector, the one who needed to be present. Whether or not this is exactly how it happened, the emotional truth remained: concern for her sister, even as the details rearranged themselves to fit her current understanding of their relationship. What struck me most was her response to Sandy's final lines about missing her. Mom's eyes welled up, though I'm not sure she fully comprehended that Sandy was referring to missing her present self, the one altered by dementia. "Sandy's a good sister," she said simply. "Always was." In that moment, I realized that while the details of their shared past might be increasingly beyond Mom's reach, the emotional truth of their connection remained intact. She might not remember the specific incidents that shaped their relationship, but she remembers somehow that she is loved, that Sandy is important, that they are sisters. That's the most essential memory of all. So one of the strangest parts of this journey is realizing that Mom's story no longer lives solely in her mind. Her memories are kind of now distributed among all of us, me, my sister Jen, Aunt Sandy, friends from church, her grandchildren. We've kind of become these external hard drives for her life. When I share Sandy's stories with Mom, I'm essentially asking her brain to recognize something that it just can't seem to independently access anymore. Sometimes it works, like there's a flicker of recognition, a laugh, or, oh, yeah, I remember, or whatever. But sometimes it doesn't. And I watch her struggle to kind of connect with her own history. Um, you know, uh, what remains constant as I go on and on and on and on about is feeling. Um, she doesn't remember the bathtub thing or the specifics of their road trips, but she knows and remembers and holds on to the fact that Sandy is important. She knows that they're sisters. Emotional memory outlasts factual ones, and I think that's pretty important. Um, what struck me in this chapter too was kind of how Mom rearranged the bar story in her memory. Sandy wrote about Mom giving her permission to go out and get a little drunk, but Mom remembers it as being worried. Being Sandy's protector. There's a 7-year age difference, over 7 years between them. So, Mom probably really always felt like a protector to her, needing to be there when and if Sandy would fall. And that's something interesting too about our family is that my sister and my mom were very similar in their younger years. And my aunt and I are very similar. We've had a lot of similar experiences. The rebellion, kind of all of that, very similar. So anyway, whether back to this with Mom and the bar story, whether it's exactly, how it happened or not, Mom cares about her sister. She wants her safe, and that feeling still lingers. Happens a lot now. Mom's memories kind of reorganize themselves to fit what feels emotionally true to her, even if the facts have changed. So it's pretty interesting to watch. And I honestly believe that the emotional truth matters more all the livelong day. So questions from listeners. This one's from Helen in the space between. I think that was the last episode. You talked about feeling parentless while your mom is still alive. How do you handle major life decisions now without being able to consult her? That question, it keeps me up at night sometimes. When something big happens, my first instinct still is to call my mom, even at 50, I just turned 50 and I still sometimes find myself saying, I just want my mom. The mom who could help me think through these troublesome problems. And she knew me well enough to ask the right questions most of the time. She just had a specific wisdom, that one that only your mom can offer. And she's not there anymore. And to be blunt, it fucking sucks. Like, sorry. I don't often use the F word, but, sometimes it is appropriate. So I've built kind of a different support network. I have friends, some really close girlfriends and close guy friends, my husband, my aunt, my sister, Jen. Sometimes even just imagining, what Mom would have said when she was herself, I would say, what would Mom tell me to do? And I usually know the answer because she parented me for decades, right? So her voice is still in my head, even if I can't really consult the actual her anymore. It's not the same, but it's what I have, and I accept that. Next question is from Christine. You mentioned in Fading Echoes that your mom sometimes loses her filter and yells at people. Has Willow Grove staff ever had issues with her behavior? How do they handle it? Yep, they have had incidents. I'm not going to share specifics here. I mean, one of them maybe, I don't know, just preserving her. I'm not gonna, but Mom can get agitated, especially when she's overwhelmed. She's been short with other residents, staff, visitors. The filter that used to kind of keep those impulses in check has just gone. I'd say that the best staff members handle it beautifully. They don't take it personally ever, obviously. They validate her feelings without, escalating. They probably redirect. I've heard one of the nurses say, "I hear you, Kathy. That sound is bothering you, so why don't we go somewhere where it's quieter?" Um, Others might struggle a little. I don't know. You can't logic someone out of a feeling their brain is creating. They do have good staff there, but it's hard to watch, knowing Mom would be horrified if she understood how she sometimes acts. Um, I had a couple of more personal questions. I figured that I would answer today because this episode's a little bit shorter. This one's from Shanna. Beth, you mentioned, that Dad's death brought you back to writing. What were you doing before that? And do you think you would have returned to writing eventually, or was his loss the catalyst you needed? Honestly, I was dabbling in a lot of things. Since the pandemic, I kind of did a huge pivot. I'll discuss more of that in my upcoming book called The Other Side of Quiet, 2026. And yes, I will be, I think it's going to be season 3 of this podcast. But anyway, Dad's death was exactly what I needed to start kind of doing this stuff again. Writing has been healing and cathartic for me. I've always wanted to help people, dead or alive. I loved working on cold cases, kind of giving voices back to the voiceless. I love coaching people on their health and lifestyle journeys. All of it comes from the same place, and that's wanting to help. And I'm really blessed to have a platform to be able to do this. It isn't necessarily financially lucrative, but that's okay because, it has a different kind of payoff for me. The impact and the connection and the healing, both for others and for myself, that's worth more to me than money. Another question from JC. You talk a lot about compassion fatigue and setting boundaries with your mom. What do you actually do to take care of yourself between visits? How do you recharge? I am a spiritual person, big into meditation, music, sound therapy. I've mentioned before that I'm very connected to the earth, vibration, the sky, the ocean, wildlife. That's where I heal, outside, with air. Nature is absolutely my therapy. When I'm overwhelmed, I go outside, I breathe. I ground myself. I'll hug a tree, whatever it takes. I'll talk to the little animals outside. I kind of let the earth hold what I can't carry anymore. It's not always enough. Sometimes the weight's a little bit too heavy even for that, but that's where I start. It's always where I return to. It's my baseline for staying sane through all of this. Next question from Sam. I know from social media you have 2 upcoming books, The Weight of Truth and The Other Side of Quiet. Can you give us a hint about what these are about? Are they also rooted in personal experience like this one? Yep. I've kind of already alluded to that. They're both deeply personal. The Weight of Truth is my journey to lose over half my weight. It's about how toxic positivity was killing me, and it's killing you, everyone out there who's listening. All my tips, my secrets to my success, overcoming a lifetime of being gravely obese, I share it all, the good, bad, and the ugly. I wanted to make it a kind of a book that's for everyone on any journey, whether you've had weight loss surgery, if you're on Ozempic or one of those things, or you're just making lifestyle changes. Because at the root of this disease is a very similar issue for us all. That will be season 2 of Unbound. Season 3, like I said, would focus on the other side of quiet. That's where I finally fully share every dirty detail of my adolescent abuse and trauma. It's what made me and what I've overcome. And as terrifying as it is to put that out into the world, I know it will help someone, even if it's just me. But I hope it's more than just me. I love helping people, and I hope that it helps someone. So anyway, next episode, we'll just continue on with more chapters from all these beautiful things. If you have any questions, comments, or anything that I might be able to address on a future episode, you can email me, unboundwithbethcurry@gmail.com, or you can join the Facebook group. Please do, because I would like to be having more discussions there about episodes, if that's at all possible. I mean, pretty slow start so far, but it's kind of starting to take off. And if you want to support the show, ko-fi.com/unbound podcast. Thank you so much for being here. All the stuff's in the show notes, all the information, including a peek at the next episode. Thank you very much for listening to me ramble on, and I will see you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to Unbound with Beth Curry. Join the conversation in the Facebook group or visit authorbethcurry.com. Want to support the show? Head to ko-fi.com/unbound podcast. Until next time, stay unbound.